Hello fabulous DIYers, it's Daniela Tabois here with Redesign Your Clothes, and in this episode I'm going to be building my wardrobe and I'm going to share with you some of the pieces that I'm creating. If you want to learn how to create this asymmetrical trumpet skirt, let's begin. So I'm going to be working with 2 yards of this gingham checkered poplin. I have it in black and also in red, and I felt like mixing them. Next, I'm going to be using a yard of this poly stretch. I love poly stretch. It's nice and airy and lightweight, and I like to use it when I'm lining woven fabrics. Everything that I'm going to be using in this video will be down in the description box. So here I'm going to be working with my straight pencil skirt pattern that I created. I draped this pattern. I'm going to link the video for you to go ahead and find it to learn how to drape yours and then transfer it onto paper. So here I'm going to start with pattern paper. The skirt is asymmetrical, so we're going to have to mirror the skirt since I have a one side portion of the skirt. So here the skirt's already fitted to me. I'm just going to make my adjustments as I go ahead and perfect it. So here I take a piece of pattern paper and I folded it, and then I'm going to take the pattern and place it onto that center fold. So that will be the center of my skirt. So here I'm going to be tracing it out, and any perfections that I need to make, I will do it right there and then. So here I'm just going to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance to just make my skirt a little bit bigger, and then cut it out, and this will be the front portion of my skirt. Now I'm going to create a curve at the bottom hem, which I'm going to be trimming away, and I'm going to decide how high I want my curve to start and end. So I'm going to come high hip, mid hip, all the way down to the hem of the skirt and create a diagonal curve line. I'm going to go ahead and cut that out, and my skirt already have seam allowance, so I don't need to add any more seam allowance to my skirt. So this is the front pattern of the skirt. I'm not going to add seam allowance to the hem because I think the length of the skirt is good. I'm just going to go ahead and write down what this skirt is and how many pieces do I need to cut out. So here's the skirt. I'm going to join my 1/2 inch seam allowance. It's already in the skirt, and then I'm going to repeat the same process for the back portion of the skirt. So once again, I took a piece of pattern paper and folded it in half, and then placed the pattern against the center front, and then this is the skirt, and also created my curved hem at the bottom. That is the back portion of the skirt along with the front portion of the skirt, which is even. So here I have to create a flounce because the flounce is where it's going to create the trumpet of the skirt. So I'm going to measure that, and the measurement of that was 25 for the front only. So now I have to create a flounce, and the top portion of the flounce has to be 25 inches, and when I cut it out twice, it will give me 50 circumference when it's time to install. At the top corner edge of my paper, I'm going to come down 16 inches to create my flounce opening. I have to make sure that that opening is 25 inches wide. I'm also going to include seam allowance as well. So I'm going to freehand the curve with my curve ruler. So here I'm cutting out my flounce now with the seam allowance at the top edge. Coming down from the side of the pattern paper is where I decide how long I want my flounce to be. Now I want my flounce to have a asymmetrical hem as well. So I have one side that's very long, so I have to determine how long I wanted it. And then the other end of the flounce will be much shorter. So one end of the flounce is 23 inches long and the other end was 8 inches long. Now I'm going to create my curved hem by connecting the longer end of the side seam of the flounce to the shorter end of the side seam of the flounce. So I'm using my measuring tape and ruler to help me do that. And then I'm going to use my curve ruler to create the curved hem. So this is the curved flounce hem, and once again I'm going to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance when I'm cutting it out. So here is my flounce, and it is not flared enough for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slash and spread this pattern so I can have a more fuller drapier flounce. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some sections within this pattern, and you can distribute your sections very evenly. I didn't do that, I just basically winged it. So I'm going to create sections, and once I've created my sections, I'm going to go ahead and cut it out, and I'm going to slash into the pattern, making sure that I do not slash through the pattern. Now once I have it slashed, I'm going to spread it out. Now this is the part where you can spread it out as much as you want. The wider you spread your pattern pieces, the greater the flounce. So I wish I went bigger, but it is what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and place this on brown paper so you can really see what's going on here. This is what it looks like. I'm going to go and reshape the bottom hem of the flounce, and then tape it down to keep it in place and create my whole pattern out of that. So this is what it looks like, and I'm going to cut it out on fabric. So I went ahead and cut it out on the red portion of my fabric because I want to have a mixed two-tone skirt. And then once I've cut it out, I cut out 2 pieces. I couldn't cut it on the fold because the fabric wasn't wide enough. And this is what I got. This is what the flounce looked like. So now that I got my flounce done and ready, it's time for me to cut my skirt. So I went ahead and cut the front portion of my skirt along with the back on the black fabric. So now I'm going to go ahead and pin my darts, and here are my darts. I'm going to sew that down and press it. So here it is sewn and pressed. And now I'm going to put together the front and back portion of my skirt together, and I'm going to sew the shorter side first. And then I cleaned it up with overlock stitching. On the other side of the skirt, which is much longer, I cleaned it up with overlock stitching. So now I'm going to install my invisible zipper at the side seam on the longer end, and I did put my lining together off camera, and now I'm going to have it ready for when it's time to install it. Now I'm going to take my flounce. As you can see, I put it together and cleaned up the side seam with an overlock stitching. And now I'm going to go ahead and connect it together with the top portion of the skirt. So here I'm pinning it together, and this is what it will look like. I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And voila, this is what it looks like. Now it's time for me to go ahead and start installing my lining. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and attach the lining to the waistline of the skirt first. Aww, my Jinxie boy is making a debut. I'm going to pin that together and sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So here I am sewing it 1/2 inch, and I also cleaned it up with a overlock stitching at the top waistline. So now that that's done, I'm going to have to top stitch a 1/8 of an inch stay stitch, so that way the lining does not flip over onto the front of the skirt. So starting after the zipper, I'm going to sew a 1/8 of an inch close to the edge on top of the lining, making sure that I push all seam allowance towards the lining as I stitch. I also went ahead and did a 3/8 of an inch hem finish on the flounce. Press it down. So now I'm going to attach the hem of the lining to the flounce seam of the skirt by going through the zipper opening. And once I've completed, it looked like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and stitch the zipper closed on one end of the zipper opening, and then also, and for the other end of the zipper opening, I'm going to hand stitch that. And once that's complete, it will look just like this. And it's ready to wear. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure to watch the video of the double knot crop top that I'm wearing, matching with the skirt. And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.